I'm going to read a poem of mine, and it's all about starting at a club where you're given instruction which you've never heard of before, and in this instance it's the folk club. And when I first started, I was bewildered by the set of instructions that you were given, but you couldn't remember obviously them all the time, so you were often pushed around when trying to do a certain move. And the names such as Daisy Chain, the Grimstock Hay, Beckett, and most bewildering of all is the Pooh set, which conjures up all sorts of things in my head anyway. This is a poem about a such person who is unnamed, of course, and it is called The Death of a Dancer Merely. And I'm going to read it because I can't remember it all. He came each week to a hall so bleak in his clothes that had seen better days. He worked on the stars and he counted the bars and did well in the Grimstock haze. But after all that and boxing the gnat, he arrived at a thing of great hate. It was not a grand square or a Beckett so rare, it was that damned figure of 8. Around he would go, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but always trying to save face. He'd look up and look down with a worrying frown, but end up in an awful place. He practiced long, but it still went wrong, and as his mind and legs wouldn't mate. There was a weave and a sway and a bit of sachet, but his line was still very straight. Tea time came, his excuses were lame, when chatting with the other dancers. And whilst nibbling a biscuit, he said he would risk it to a guy who knew all of the answers. The caller restarted, the sets became parted, ready for the dreaded figure. Off he did go, feeling just like a pro, but his fear got bigger and bigger. It was right shoulder first. He had a terrible thirst as the person in front went right. Should he weave left, he was totally bereft. The whole was a disastrous sight. He wandered home alone and started to groan, thinking that all was lost. Thoughts in his head said he'd be better off dead, but not at any cost. So without any hope, he bought a rope and hung it from a beam in the hall. He swung so high, and with a tear in his eye, he said, "Blocks to it all." But he didn't die as he swung so high. He went back and forth on his swing. As he swung, he thought of all he'd been taught, and with this in mind he did cling to all of the days he had danced in a haze whilst thinking of his bête noire. He practiced in his house with his dog and his spouse, and was starting to erase the scar of all of the moves when his feet felt like hooves and nothing felt just great. Then finally, and at last, and after just one cast, he walked and he skipped that damnable figure of 8. Thank you.